You're in the middle of a sentence, sharing something deeply important, and suddenly, they cut you off. Again, you can feel your blood boil, your jaw clench, but you just stay quiet and let them take over. Are they just incredibly rude, or is there a darker, hidden psychological game at play? Today, we decode the hidden neuroscience of the chronic interrupter, and more importantly, how to finally take your power back. Think back to the very last time it happened to you. You were sitting at a crowded dinner table, or maybe a tense Monday morning meeting at work. You were finally getting to the best part of a story, or making a crucial point you spent days preparing. You take a brief, natural breath, a fraction of a second, and boom, the space is gone. Someone else's voice violently hijacks the airwaves. In that exact moment, your brain registers a micro-trauma. It sounds dramatic, but neurologically speaking, being forcefully interrupted triggers the exact same acute stress response in your amygdala as a physical threat. Your heart rate spikes. A sudden flush of heat travels up your neck. You are left sitting there with a heavy, suffocating feeling of invisible disrespect. You swallow your words, you physically shrink back into your chair, and you ask yourself the same exhausting question. Why do they always do this to me? Do my thoughts not matter? Do they just not care about anyone but themselves? Society has a very simple, convenient label for these people. We call them rude. We call them socially unaware. We assume they are driven by a massive, unchecked ego and a complete lack of basic human empathy. But what if I told you that the truth is far more complicated, and honestly, a little bit terrifying? Behavioral psychology and modern neuroscience have been putting the chronic interrupter under the microscope, and the data reveals a completely different reality. The people who constantly cut you off are not all operating from the same psychological playbook. In fact, their brains are wired into 3 entirely distinct cognitive profiles. One of these profiles involves a highly toxic, calculated power play designed to systematically erase your self-esteem and assert dominance. It is a literal form of conversational abuse. But the other 2 profiles? The other 2 have absolutely nothing to do with arrogance and everything to do with how their specific neurological hardware processes time, affection, and dopamine. And until you know exactly which of the 3 types of interrupters is sitting across from you, you will always be the one left in silence. Let's start with a massive plot twist. The first type of interrupter you encounter in your daily life is actually not your enemy at all. In fact, they might be the person who loves and understands you the most. I know, your brain is immediately rejecting that idea. How can someone who constantly talks over you possibly care about you? To understand this, we have to step out of the realm of rudeness and step into a fascinating linguistic phenomenon known as the co-operative overlap. Coined by sociolinguist Deborah Tannen, the co-operative overlap is a style of communication where talking along with someone is not meant as an intrusion, but as a profound display of emotional connection. Imagine you are telling a story about a horrible, stressful day you just had. Before you can even finish your thought, your friend jumps in and excitedly says, "And they completely ignored your email, right?" You instantly feel that familiar spike of irritation. You think they are stealing your thunder. You think they are making it about them. But in their mind, in their psychological framework, they are throwing you a lifeline. For the cooperative overlapper, conversational silence is terrifying. To them, if they just sit back, nod silently, and wait quietly for you to finish your story, they feel like they are abandoning you. They feel cold, distant, and unengaged. By jumping into the middle of your sentence, they are desperately trying to communicate, "I am with you. I see you. I am experiencing your emotions so intensely that I literally cannot contain my verbal reactions." They aren't trying to push you off the stage. They are trying to jump onto the stage and perform the duet with you. So, if their intentions are so pure, why does it feel so deeply insulting to you? This brings us to the psychological concept of the pacing clash. Human beings have fundamentally different cognitive processing speeds when it comes to verbal communication. Some of us are methodical processors. We carefully construct our thoughts. We value the pauses. We rely on the silence between sentences to map out our next words. When someone invades that silence, our brain registers it as a hostile takeover. But the cooperative overlapper is usually a rapid processor. Their brain treats conversation like a high-speed game of ping pong. If there is a pause, if you don't hit the verbal ball back instantly, they assume the game is stalling out, so they serve another ball to keep the energy alive. It's a tragic miscommunication of affection. They are interrupting to show solidarity, but your methodical brain receives it as dominance. Once you realize that your overly enthusiastic friend or partner is suffering from a cultural pacing clash rather than a superiority complex, that heavy feeling of disrespect starts to fade. You realize they don't want to silence you, they just want to harmonize with you, albeit very loudly. But do not let your guard down just yet. Because while this first type of interrupter is driven by empathy and excitement, the next type has absolutely no control over their actions. They are completely held hostage by a chemical glitch in their own brain, and their interruptions are a desperate act of cognitive survival. Let's do a quick psychological thought experiment. I want you to imagine that your brain is a computer's web browser. Now, open 50 different tabs at the exact same time. Suddenly, incredibly loud music starts blaring from one of those tabs, but you have absolutely no idea which one it is. The cursor is freezing, the cooling fan is screaming, and the entire operating system is on the absolute brink of a catastrophic crash. Welcome to the baseline reality of our second type of interrupter, the neurodivergent brain, specifically those dealing with ADHD or hyperactive processing. When this person cuts you off in the middle of a sentence, it is incredibly easy to view it as an act of blatant disrespect. But if we put their brain inside an fMRI scanner during a conversation, we would see a terrifying reality. We wouldn't see malice, we would see a neurological emergency. To understand this, we have to look at a silent thief inside their prefrontal cortex called a working memory deficit in a neurotypical brain, a brain that functions the way society expects it to. Working memory acts like a mental sticky note. When someone else is talking and you suddenly have a brilliant idea or a relatable story, your brain writes that thought down on the sticky note. It hits the mental pause button, patiently stores the information, listens to the rest of the person's sentence, and then seamlessly brings the thought back up when it's your turn to speak. The neurodivergent brain does not have a pause button. It only has a delete button. Their working memory is compromised. When you are telling them a story, their highly associative brain fires off a connection. It generates a response at lightning speed. But because of how their neurological hardware is wired, they know, with absolute, terrifying certainty, that if they do not say this thought out loud right in this exact microsecond, it will vanish into the abyss forever. The mental sticky note isn't just fragile, it is literally on fire. And it goes even deeper than just forgetfulness. It is fundamentally about dopamine. ADHD is, at its core, a dopamine deficiency. When their brain makes a sudden connection to what you are saying, it produces a tiny, desperately needed hit of dopamine. The impulse to blurt it out is not a choice, it is a hijacked survival reflex. If they try to suppress it, if they force themselves to sit on their hands, bite their tongue, and wait for you to finish, a bizarre physical reaction occurs. The unspoken thought creates literal, physical pressure inside their body. It feels like an unbearable itch right behind their eyes. Their heart rate elevates. The physical discomfort of holding the words in becomes so overwhelming that they can no longer hear a single word you are actually saying. They are just vibrating with the effort of containment until the dam finally breaks and the words explode out of their mouth. And here is the most tragic part about the dopamine hijack: the immediate aftermath. Unlike the toxic manipulators we are going to expose in the next chapter, this type of interrupter is acutely self-aware, and they are usually drowning in guilt. The second the words leave their mouth and they see you sigh, or roll your eyes, or pull back, the dopamine crash hits them. They realize they did it again. They realize they ruined the flow. They spend the rest of the conversation mentally punishing themselves, feeling immense shame for a hardware glitch they cannot seem to control. They did not interrupt you because your words didn't matter. They interrupted you because they were terrified of their own forgetfulness. It is a flaw in the circuitry, not a flaw in their character. But do not let this empathy blind you. Because while the cooperative overlapper does it out of love, and the neurodivergent brain does it out of a chemical necessity, there is a third type of interrupter sitting in the shadows. And this third type? They know exactly what they are doing. They are not glitching, and they are not excited. They are playing a very dark, very calculated psychological game with your self-esteem, and it is time we pull the mask off of conversational narcissism. So far, we have looked at the interrupters who mean well, and the interrupters who genuinely cannot help it due to their neurological wiring. We have given them grace, we have given them empathy, but now we must turn off the lights and look into the darkest, most manipulative corner of human communication. Because there is a third type of interrupter out there, and they are not glitching. They are not overly excited to connect with you. They know exactly what they are doing, and they are using you. In the late 1970s, a brilliant sociologist named Charles Derber made a chilling observation about human interaction. He realized that a conversation is not just an exchange of words, it is an invisible economy of attention, and in every economy, there are thieves. Derber coined a term that perfectly describes this dark archetype: conversational narcissism. Conversational narcissism isn't always loud, aggressive, or obvious. In fact, the most dangerous practitioners are incredibly subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye. They don't just cut you off to shut you up, they cut you off to steal the spotlight. They operate using a deeply manipulative, heavily researched linguistic weapon known as the shift response. Let me explain exactly how this psychological trap works. In a healthy, balanced dynamic, when you share a piece of information, an emotionally mature person uses what is called a support response. For example, you say, "I've been feeling so incredibly burned out at work lately." A support response keeps the camera firmly focused on you. They ask, "I'm so sorry, what's been causing all the stress? How are you handling it?" But the conversational narcissist? They deploy the shift response. They hijack your vulnerability and use it as a convenient stepping stone to build their own stage. You say, "I've been feeling so burned out." They immediately interrupt and say, "Oh, you think you're burned out? You should see my schedule. I haven't slept more than 4 hours all week, and my boss is driving me insane." Just like that, in the blink of an eye, your pain is erased. Your story is gone. The spotlight has been violently ripped away, and you are suddenly forced into the role of their audience. If you mention you had a terrible headache, they interrupt to say they once survived a life-threatening migraine. If you talk about a beautiful vacation you just took, they interrupt to tell you about a much more expensive, exotic trip they took 5 years ago. The truly terrifying part is how brilliantly they disguise this shift response. They often wrap their interruption in a fake, sickeningly sweet layer of empathy. They will start by saying, "I totally understand exactly how you feel, because when I went through that," and boom, the trap is sprung. They use the illusion of relation to execute the hijack. You sit there, nodding politely, feeling a bizarre mix of confusion and emptiness, not even realizing that your emotional pocket has just been picked. Why do they do this? Because to the conversational narcissist, a conversation is not a bridge to connect with another human being, it is a mirror. They are constantly, desperately looking at their own reflection in your eyes. Deep down, this behavior stems from a terrifyingly fragile ego. They possess a bottomless, black hole of a need for external validation. If the attention of the room strays away from them for even a single minute, they experience a psychological freefall. They feel invisible. They feel worthless. And to avoid that agonizing feeling, they will gladly step on your voice, your trauma, and your joy to elevate their own. Neurologically, they are extracting dopamine from your submission. Every single time you stop talking, bite your tongue, and let them take over the narrative, you are rewarding their toxic loop. This is exactly why interacting with them leaves you feeling so physically exhausted and emotionally drained. You aren't just having a chat, you are being harvested for attention. They are emotional vampires feeding off your listening energy while giving absolutely nothing in return. Over time, being constantly subjected to the shift response does something devastating to your psyche. It slowly erodes your self-esteem. You start to unconsciously believe that your stories simply do not matter. You start speaking less. You shrink your personality to make room for their massive, fragile ego. But here is the most powerful thing you can do starting today. Recognize the game. The next time you share a piece of your heart and someone instantly shifts it back to themselves, you no longer have to feel small or boring. You can look right at them and know exactly what is happening in their brain. It is not that you lack value. It is that you are sitting across from a conversational narcissist and their ego is simply too weak to let you shine. We have explored the loving interruptions and the neurological glitches. We have even exposed the conversational narcissist desperately seeking validation. But now, we must pan the camera out. We need to look at what happens when interrupting is no longer just a personality trait, but a highly calculated, psychological weapon used to establish dominance. Welcome to the invisible architecture of the silent hierarchy. Sometimes, a person interrupting you has absolutely nothing to do with what they want to say. In fact, they might not even have a valuable point to make. They are interrupting you simply to prove one terrifying subconscious point. My time is inherently more valuable than yours, and I have the power to make you stop. If you want to see this dark psychology in action, step inside any corporate boardroom, or sit at the table of a highly dysfunctional family gathering. Psychologists and sociologists have studied group dynamics for decades, and the data reveals a brutal truth. Interruptions are almost never random. They flow strictly downward along the lines of power. Studies on workplace communication consistently show that bosses interrupt employees exponentially more than employees interrupt bosses. But it goes deeper into societal conditioning. Extensive linguistic research, including massive studies from George Washington University, has proven the phenomenon often referred to as manterrupting, where women are interrupted at significantly higher rates than men, regardless of their status or expertise in the room. When someone higher up on the perceived social ladder cuts you off, it is rarely an accident. It is a primal, animalistic display of dominance, translated for the modern world. In the wild, animals bare their teeth or puff out their chests to establish the alpha. In the modern office or the toxic relationship, they simply talk over you. By forcing you to stop your sentence, they are forcing you into a posture of submission. They are silently training you, and everyone else in the room, to accept who owns the airspace. And the psychological toll this takes on the victim is devastating. If you are subjected to this power play day after day, month after month, you don't just get annoyed. You develop a psychological condition known as ego erosion. Ego erosion is a slow, agonizing death of your self-advocacy. When your brain is repeatedly punished for speaking up, when your sentences are constantly severed in half, your nervous system eventually adopts a state of learned helplessness. You begin to unconsciously edit yourself before you even speak. You start making your stories shorter. You stop offering ideas in meetings. You lower your voice. You physically shrink. You convince yourself that taking the high road by staying quiet is a sign of maturity, when in reality, it is a trauma response. Let me be brutally honest with you. When you are dealing with a dominant interrupter, your silence is not a shield. Your silence is a signature on a contract of submission. Every time you let them bulldoze your sentence without consequence, you are giving them permission to do it again tomorrow. You cannot fix them. You cannot make them respect you by being politely quiet. But you can completely dismantle their power play. You can shatter the silent hierarchy. And you can do it without raising your voice, without starting an argument, and without losing your temper. It requires a very specific set of psychological boundaries, and that is exactly what we are going to build right now. You now know exactly what is happening inside the brain of the person interrupting you. You know if they are overflowing with desperate affection, battling a severe dopamine deficit, or executing a highly calculated power play. But psychological knowledge without action is just trivia. It is time to equip you with the exact neurological blueprint to take your power back, and you are going to do it without ever raising your voice. The absolute worst thing you can do when someone violently cuts you off is to try and talk louder than them. That just creates a chaotic, overlapping shouting match. It spikes your cortisol, and it signals to the rest of the room that you have lost emotional control. Instead, you are going to use a terrifyingly effective psychological weapon known as the unblinking pause. The next time a conversational narcissist or a dominant interrupter severs your sentence, let them. Stop talking immediately, but do not look away, do not look down, and absolutely do not nod along. Look directly into their eyes with a completely neutral, unreadable expression. Let them finish their intrusive thought. When they stop speaking, do not respond to a single thing they just said. Instead, let a heavy, suffocating silence hang in the air for exactly 3 seconds. Let them feel the devastating weight of their own interruption. Then, in a calm, flat, unwavering voice, say just 4 words. I was not finished. And then, pick up your story exactly on the syllable where you left off. If they try to use the shift response to hijack the topic entirely, you use a secondary technique called the bridge back. You simply say, "That sounds incredibly difficult for you, but as I was saying," you physically take the spotlight, turn it around, and aim it right back at yourself. You are not starting a fight. You are calmly and ruthlessly enforcing a cognitive boundary. The true beauty of this blueprint is that it protects you from the manipulators while still leaving room for empathy. If your neurodivergent friend blurts something out, you can smile, let them have their much-needed dopamine hit, and gently say, "Okay, now back to my story." You finally get to choose how to respond because you finally understand the hidden machinery of their mind. So, I have to ask you, which type of interrupter do you deal with the most in your daily life? Are you surrounded by enthusiastic cooperative overlappers, fast-thinking ADHD minds, or the emotionally draining conversational narcissists? Share your experiences and tell me your stories down in the comments below. And if you are ready to stop being manipulated and want to continue decoding the dark psychology of human behavior, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Your voice matters. It is time you start making them listen.